gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 24th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined again this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented today by birddogs.com, your, I'm going to say, leading apparel designer maker for comfortable, casual, perfectly fitting leisure wear. And highly recommend birddogs.com. We'll talk a little bit more about Bird Dogs later in the show. We'll talk about a couple of their products, including my favorite polo shirt in all of creation. That's this blue and white striped polo shirt. Trying to show it to you here on the screen. I guess I got to come back here. They call this at the birddogs.com store Gary's Anatomy. And unless they change that name, sorry that you're so frustrated, Matt Shodell, by the fact that I have a shirt named after me and you do not. But any clothing maker that names a shirt after me is okay in my book. And I love my Bird Dogs clothing. And we'll talk more about them later in the show.
If they were naming it after you, they would only do one size and it would be extra, extra small. It's not named after you. Okay? I don't think that's the part of
to fit these guns in that shirt.
I don't think that's the part of the anatomy that I'm referring to. It's your brain.
Right.
I'm referring to your brain, in case people are wondering.
I'm not even gonna respond at all.
Hey, you started it.
Yeah, well, if they named it after you, it would be extra small too, but they'd be referring to your brain. So, anyway. All right, let's move on to the Miami Hurricanes news of the day before we get anybody upset with us. And boy, Matt, so much stuff in the last 24 hours coming off that campus in Coral Gables. All of it on the website today. We had basketball media day. Very interesting to talk to Jim Larinaga. I had a chance to observe some of practice yesterday, and like the athleticism I'm seeing of this team. And we'll talk more about that here in the next couple of weeks as the season approaches. I don't think we have to beat it to death today, but they're very excited. They're very optimistic about their prospects for this season. And when I look at a core of Nigel Pack and Norchad Omir and Wooga Poplar, and you watch them practice. That's a big three, man. That is a big three that the Miami Hurricanes are starting out with as the foundation of this team this year, and then going from there. So Canes basketball season is going to be worth watching this year. But let's talk mostly about football today, and just some fascinating stuff. And I'm going to start with defensive coordinator Lance Guidry. And love his transparency, love his honesty. And he talked about a few things that were just absolutely fascinating. The first I'll bring up is the fact that he created a special 3-3 set for the game against Clemson that was clearly very effective. The two best defensive ends on the team, not Nigel Kelly and Keem Messidor, were both out for the game. So they felt like they had to get a little creative to make sure they had the right personnel on the field to defend against Clemson. And what he did was he created a 3-3 set, three defensive linemen with 3 linebackers backing them up, and it really confused Clemson. They hadn't seen it before. We're not prepared. They had to adjust on the fly, and it contributed mightily to a couple things. Well, for starters, the success that the Miami defense had in the game, but I think it also contributed a lot to their overuse of the fly route up the sideline, trying to hit those deep balls. They hit a couple of them, but didn't hit as many as they would like. because that was just an easy way out. Like, why try to teach everybody a whole new offense to deal with this defensive set when you just try to go over the top, take advantage of Miami's weakness at the cornerback position, and gain big chunks of yards. And so an interesting cat and mouse chess game going on there with Lance Guidry, Matt. After he talked about it, you went back into the lab, you watched the film, and you put together an analysis that is on the website right now. Tell us a little bit about what you found.
I wasn't really listening to your whole thing. I was whatever.
Nobody cares. Just tell us what you found when you went in the lab.
Ruben or
the tape of Lance Guidry's 3-3 defense. That's all anybody cares about.
Lance Guidry did what any good defense coordinator does, and what too many Miami past coordinators haven't really done, which is instead of putting your system and just putting it onto whatever you've got, he adjusts to what he has. So he was missing his two starting from the beginning of the year defensive ends, who were Nigel Kelly and Akeem Messidor, both that injured. Ruben Bane obviously now is the starting defensive end. But you're missing those two guys. And so what do? I personally wouldn't have thought of this because I don't think the linebackers are very good, but he decided to go to a base defense almost, where he used this most of the time, of a 3-3 stack, where he's not just putting three on the defensive line, but when he does put 4 or 5 or 6 on there, they're linebackers joining just 3 defensive linemen, and he made Jared Harrison Hunt into a defensive end because, other than that, you got guys who aren't really good at setting the edge. Jafari Harvey is older and should be good at setting the edge, but he's really more of a pass rusher. That's just what his forte is. And other than that, there's just not a lot of defensive end experience. So now you got a big, strong, relatively quick for his size defensive tackle playing defensive end in Jared Harrison Hunt. You got another defensive tackle with defensive end speed in Ruben Bane, and then you have an actual defensive tackle now playing nose tackle in Leonard Taylor. So they literally played 3 defensive tackles, because Ruben Bane, let's face it, he's a defensive tackle. He will be a defensive tackle. So they played 3 defensive tackles in a 3-3 stack with 3 linebackers who aren't even that talented, in my opinion, and it worked. It worked beautifully. Like, Cade Klubnik didn't know what the hell was happening. He was like, we didn't see this on tape. How many times have we seen the Miami offense just look totally out of sorts because a defense ran something they didn't expect? Finally, and I've been begging for this from the beginning of the year. I said, finally we have a coordinator who does something you didn't see on tape this year, right? Not a lot of that. And it was fantastic. It worked great. Clemson, for the first time this year, was out-yardaged, if that's a word, and didn't even have, I don't even think they had 375 yards of total offense. And that includes both overtime periods. So really, hats off to Lance Guidry. And my feeling with Lance Guidry is he's he can be a great defensive coordinator, but he's just not quite seasoned yet. And by that, I mean, he comes up with some ideas, and the ideas sometimes are just amazing, like what we saw against Clemson. And then sometimes he outthinks himself a little too much, like what we saw against North Carolina. Because a week ago, we were saying how it didn't work. What he did clearly didn't work. And his players clearly weren't prepared for the pace of North Carolina, which ultimately has to fall back on the defense coordinator, because North Carolina had shown it every game, including against Syracuse. We literally timed in between each play how many seconds there were. It was no different than against Syracuse. So look, like I said after that North Carolina game, I said he's going to learn from that. He's going to be better for it. He's a fine defense coordinator, and I think even bordering on great defense coordinator. But first year as a Power 5 defense coordinator, he's still going to learn, just like a true freshman, right? just like he was talking about with who's the true freshman? Horton? Is that who I'm thinking of? The true freshman defensive tackle, right? Is that who he was just asked about?
Josh Horton, yes.
Josh Horton, that's what him yesterday. And he said, look, Josh Horton's going to be great, but he's just a true freshman. He's still learning. Like, to me, Lance Guidry is still learning.
Well, the biggest thing was he was not here for spring practice. So he's not far along.
I'm trying to make an analogy. All right, Gary's anatomy. I'm trying to make an analogy.
Yeah, but you're twisting the facts. But
the analogy is Lance Guidry's never coached as an ACC coordinator. He's never coached as a Power 5 coordinator before this. And he's going to be so much better as he continues. Like, next year, after a full year watching all these ACC teams and preparing every week for these teams, he's going to really be off the chart, I think, in terms of what he can scheme up with even better personnel, with even more experienced personnel, with a healthy Messidor, hopefully, with Nigel Kelly back, with Ruben Bane, who's going to be probably one of the nation's top returning defensive linemen. I mean, it's going to be insane some of the stuff he can do with this defense, especially if one or two of these true freshman linebackers turn out to be decent, and can play a bit next year. And you get a cornerback or two as free agents. Maybe you need a safety free agent, depending on what happens with James Williams and Cam Kinchens. And it should be mentioned, by the way, for those of you that think Cam Kinchens has played poorly this year, he certainly has compared to last year. But, it was divulged yesterday he has had an ankle injury, okay? And you can clearly see he's not himself. And apparently, finally, he's getting over that. And this week is supposedly going to be the first time he's really at 100%. So I'm expecting a much better Cam Kinchens against Virginia. And it couldn't come at a better time because, like you were asking, badgering Lance Guidry about yesterday, there's going to be some big, fast receivers Miami's going up against, especially with Florida State. And they're going to need some safeties to cover some of these guys one-on-one just in Lance Guidry's scheme, not just the corners, or at least help the corners, which typically there are a lot of one-on-one. So look, Lance Guidry's going to figure it out. And I have a lot of faith in him. And I'm gonna say next year I'll have even more faith. Like right now how can I quantify my faith in him? I don't know. I don't want to do a religious reference. I have a decent amount of faith in him. Next year, I feel like I'll have a lot more.
Well, he did say one thing that was interesting, and Virginia, who they play this weekend, lost the first 5 games. Okay, so they're a natural potential overlook team coming to Hard Rock Stadium this weekend. But they beat William and Mary, and then last week they upset North Carolina. And Lance Guidry did make a comment that he was happy to see that they upset North Carolina because he feels that will get the team's attention. And it goes to what I feel I've been seeing, which was amazing performances and effort in Texas A&M and Clemson games. Not so great effort in the Georgia Tech game for sure, and not a great level of preparation for North Carolina, in my opinion. They were not ready for that hurry-up offense. Okay, that's more on Lance Guidry than the players, but the point is that the effort has been a little uneven so far this season. Quite honestly, we don't sugarcoat. So he was happy about the fact that Virginia went into Chapel Hill and beat North Carolina because he feels this will get the attention of the guys. We will come out ready to play on Saturday. What do you think, Matt? You think it plays out that way?
It's interesting because I find it annoying when coaches always say our players are prepared for every game the same. It doesn't matter. Blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, we're so happy that they beat North Carolina because now our players will actually try hard, or prepare hard or whatever, prepare harder. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Just pick one. But I think he's right. I think a lot of football is mental. And this is something that goes unsaid. But to me, when you tell Jared Harrison Hunt you're playing defensive end, when you tell those defensive linemen there's only going to be 3 of you, when you tell KJ Cloyd you're going to be playing 50 reps this game, even though he's been a backup the last few weeks, because this is what we're doing. When you tell KJ Cloyd you're going to be covering the tight end, when you do things that players aren't typically expected to do in their particular positions and what they've been doing in the past, I feel like they naturally try harder. They naturally are more excited. It's something new. It's something that, just think in your normal life, right? You're going to a fancy new restaurant instead of Gary's wife cooking dinner. That's exciting. That's something you look forward to. And so I think that had something to do with the performance against Clemson because it was a different scheme. The players were obviously excited to be in it. You could see them just flying to the ball more than I honestly remember any other game this season, including Texas A&M, where I thought the defense played very well also. I mean, you put some of those film clips on and you see, literally 8 guys making a tackle, like 8 guys. That's not a joke. Like there's 8 guys all around the guy who has the ball. And that's what you love to see. So there's a lot to be said for college student athletes in this current social media age, NIL age, professional college football player age to get guys excited, because there have been many times and many players on this team where I could just see, even in practices, they just weren't invested. They didn't really want to be there. They would rather have been, maybe even eating Gary's wife's cooking. I don't know. But in this game, they sure all seemed excited on defense. They all sure seemed, amped up in a different style of defense to say, hey, we're doing something different. We're going to surprise Clemson. This is going to be great. And you know what? It was great. It did work. Even with Emory Williams and the quarterback. And you know what? Shannon Dawson also believes in Lance Guidry, because if he didn't, he would have had to come out with a much different game plan, because he clearly told us yesterday also, my game plan was to do nothing until later in the game when we felt like maybe we would have to. He literally said that. He said, I didn't want Emory Williams to do anything because he didn't trust Emory Williams. But he felt like after watching what Emory did in the fourth quarter, he felt like, hey, if I actually had dialed up some plays for Emory earlier, he actually might have made some more plays. And you know what? If he had trusted Emory earlier, Miami might win by 30 points. And
I don't know about that.
Kings Nation really a buzz, or they might have lost by 30 points. And he also said the interception. He said the interception Emory threw also was not Emory's fault. I think that was Jacoby Georges gave up on the route, by the way.
He did.
So.
He absolutely did give up on the route.
Yeah.
But
there's that too.
I think Shannon Dawson's thinking was very sound. He's rolling a true freshman.
They won the game. If they lost the game, Gary, don't beat around the bush. You and I both said at the beginning of the game, they're going to lose this game because they're so conservative. At the end of the game in the fourth quarter, we're like, they're going to lose because they didn't try to score. Just get 20 more yards and kick a field goal.
We're being too conservative. I did no argument.
Let's not change what we said. Like, let's tell the truth. That's what we felt at the time. They won, so it all washes away. But if they had lost in overtime or double overtime,
going crazy.
Those coaches would be getting fans on the message board would be saying, fire them. Like that's the small window between perception being this program is on the uprise and me myself writing a whole column saying this is a stepping stone. And that small window of that decision working out or not working out is a 4-3 team with 3 straight losses, and this is a disaster and we lost all these commitments. Like that's the difference. The perception, because it worked out in double overtime, is like through the roof. And is it real or not real? Like it's always somewhere in the middle. It's never as good, never as bad. It's in the middle, but they're better than last year, and that's called an upward trajectory. That's clear to me. There's
always a fine line. It's funny. Jim Larinaga was talking yesterday, and they figured out here's a team that went to the Final Four. Okay, they phenomenal season, dream season, the whole thing. They'll have a Final Four banner up in the rafters here when the season starts and the whole thing. They had 17 games last season that went down to the last possession. I mean, that is unbelievable. I mean, just the razor thin margin between winning and losing sometimes in sports. And Miami football lived on that ragged edge on Saturday. Yes, we did. We were sitting up there, oh my God, they're being way too conservative. They are going to lose this game because they were too conservative. Now, the reason they were being so conservative is they had a lot of respect for Clemson's defense, what Clemson's defense had in its playbook, and what that might mean to inexperienced, Emory Williams. And they were trying not to overload him. They were trying to keep it simple, keep him in successful plays, and eke out a victory. And so they decide to kill the ball at the end of regulation and play for overtime. And luckily it worked out for them. But Matt's right. Like all you guys out there would be yelling and screaming if they had lost that game in overtime. And the fact that the basketball team had 17 games.
Okay, they didn't have 17. Just because he told you that doesn't make it true. Check the facts. They had 9 games decided by 3 points or less. By definition, you can't have a last possession.
I'm not arguing with Jim Larinaga. He says 17.
Look it up.
I have not done the research.
Look it up.
Don't look at scores and try to.
If it's a last possession, it has to be within 3 points. Am I wrong, or am I like losing my mind all of a sudden? 9 games decided by 3 points.
You get a lot of guard. You could be right technically and wrong actually, because
he just meant games in the last couple of minutes that were close. That's what he meant.
Talking, because after your last possession, sometimes somebody fouls or something, and there's
garbage. He meant like the last minute or two. It was a close game, could have gone either way. That's what he's trying to say. Fine.
We'll qualify to that because we don't know the exact number.
He made up the number 17.
You say 9.
I'm going with he made up a number 17. I'm going with he made it up.
You're so loose with your facts all the time. It's unbelievable. It's like you're talking about bird dogs at the start of the show. FYI, they don't even have extra small. Okay, that's number 1. All right, and then here is I'm going to show you.
Aren't they an advertiser? Why are you talking down about bird dogs? They'll make extra small.
And I'm going to show you. This is bird dogs where they're talking about the polo shirts and Gary's Anatomy polo shirts.
Dude, is that a joke?
Like, does this look like anything referencing?
That's X-rated. Get that off the screen. You can't show that to little kids. What the hell's wrong with you?
Listen.
Thank God.
It's a public website. Now listen. That's birddogs.com. That's on the front page.
Website. Every website's public. What?
Go to birddogs.com. That's the photo on the front page of their website.
Well, children should be discouraged from being able to see that picture. I mean, seriously.
The point is, you're loose with your facts.
All right,
Okay?
well, let's talk about some real facts. You want to talk about real facts?
Oh,
I'll give you some real facts. All right? Here's some real facts.
By the way, everybody, he is trying so hard to get me to tell him, Matt, you no longer have to wake up at 5 a.m. and do this show. He is begging for it. Begging for it.
I really would be. So Pat Price 6115, or as you probably would call him, Pat Price. I don't know. You never pronounce names right. He had the post of the year. He posted on the YouTube channel yesterday. He said, "How does Steven have time for the show after starting as the quarterback against Clemson?" Because of course Steven stole Emory Williams' mustache. And I love that. How does Steven have time for the show after starting as a quarterback against Clemson? And then Greg McMullen 1636 is right up there too, because he's keeping it real. Let Steven talk, Matt. Good Lord. I agree 100%. And then Reemro 8760. Love that dude, woman, whatever. Wow. Finally a happy Matt. It seems so fake. You are an actor, bro. Unbelievable. And I assume the unbelievable is like this. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like with the whole sarcastic thing. Look, people don't even want me on here. Like, I don't understand why. I think they're just punishing me for being a negative person, making me wake up, come on this stupid show that nobody even watches or cares about, and all I do is complain about me afterwards. Like, where's the mustache guy? You know, how about a Happy Azubi on here? Like, nobody wants to see this in the morning. The only thing this does is apparently, you know, somebody said their dog runs out of the room when it hears my voice. So at least you don't have to deal with your dog in the morning, which I get that. That's a positive. But aside from that, there's no positive to this. Like, it's, you know, it's a little nonsensical. And I will just add, by the way, for people who think that Gary is like a Cristobal apologist and that I'm not a fan of Miami, well, guess what? I'm not technically a fan of Miami, and Gary's not technically a Cristobal apologist. We're called reporters, journalists. Like, we're supposed to be objective. We're supposed to give you out there an actual glimpse of what we think the program is really like, not viewed through some magical lens of everything's fantastic in fairyland, where everything's, you know, whatever, orange and green and like hunky-dory, and it's the greatest thing ever. And, you know, being a Miami fan is the only fan you should ever be because every other team sucks. Like, we just try to keep it real. And you know, if you don't like it being kept real, go to the other shows where they just tell you how amazing the team is and how every player is going to be great. Because guess what? There's going to be 40 people on this roster that aren't great. That after they graduate, we're going to be like, yeah, it didn't really work out for them. Because that's how it is. And when you try to identify those 40 now, people yell at you and say, what are you talking about? You know, all 85 scholarship players are amazing. But like at the end of the day, you got to find the 10 playmakers. And Gary and I were talking about this yesterday. There's two guys on defense right now that I would say are playing at a championship level, and that's Ruben Bane and maybe James Williams. And that's it. This is not a championship defense. And 100%. Lance Guidry can do his little, you know, gimmicks and change things up to confuse people. That's fantastic. But until you have a championship level defense with 5 Ruben Banes, one at each level of the defense, and then another one wherever, you know, a couple at each spot, whatever, like what you used to have in the old days, right? Like, that's when you have a defense that will consistently be great. Because right now what Miami has is an inconsistent team, an inconsistent defense, and it's because they don't have championship level players at a giant depth level. And people will yell at me and say I'm so negative and they just beat Clemson. But like, that's my journalist hat. And I, as much as anyone, want Miami to win because it's really fun to cover a winning team and not have Mario glare at some reporter named Susan when she asks him about the safety that should have been called, and then just go like silent and his veins are bulging. He goes, next question. And then she literally asks him again the same exact question, which I love. You know, Susan's a friend of mine. I love that. And to which he still did not respond, by the way. But Lance Guidry, the guy who tells the truth.
He said he was going to break the podium.
He did. Yeah. Well, he was looking at Susan when he went like that. So
I'm going to break this.
I'm a little worried about Susan. I haven't seen her since the press conference. Hopefully, hopefully she's still in one piece.
And if Mario wanted to break it, you know he could.
Yeah, it's like the old Drago movie or whatever. I will break you. But a Rocky movie, I guess. But what was I saying? So yeah. But Lance Guidry's like, yeah, that should have been a safety. You know, that was a safety. So good for Lance Guidry. You know, Lance Guidry, just like Matt Shodell, he's a truth teller. For better or for worse, he's a truth teller. He is. He is. I love Lance Guidry. I mean, I'm right there with you. You know, listen,
he was not as prepared as he needed to be at North Carolina. No argument. I think he learned a lot from that experience. I don't think I hope we don't see that happen again.
He's a smart guy.
He's a smart guy. He's a very good defensive coordinator. He's creative. He goes out. He's willing to go outside the box. I mean,
there's something wrong with his brain, because people that think like that. No, I'm not kidding. People that
maybe there's something wrong with your brain. You think there's something wrong with all of us out here.
Listen, I have a child who, when he was in kindergarten, they asked everyone their favorite number. Okay, do you know what his favorite number was? Infinity. To which the teacher responded, "That's not a number, that's a concept." He's in kindergarten. Okay.
Lance Guidry, Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond.
Lance Guidry's brain works differently. And that's a huge asset, because a lot of people they sort of are in the box. They sort of see what they see, and it's very simplistic. And they sort of have this one path. Lance Guidry sees too much, and then he tries to get it down to what he thinks will work best. And sometimes that can cause problems, like against North Carolina. And sometimes he'll try to do too much, which can confuse his own defense. But when he gets it right, like what you saw against Clemson, I mean, how many other defense coordinators would have said, okay, we got two defensive ends injured. We're going to move a tackle to defensive end, and we're going to do a 3-3 stack, for the first time, and teach the team that in 1 week against Clemson, with a mobile quarterback. You're going to put a defensive tackle essentially on both sides at end, trying to contain him. I mean, it was actually brilliant, because the linebackers had enough speed. Even Corey Flagg looked fast for some reason against Cade Klubnik. Everyone says Corey's not fast enough, right? Chased down Cade Klubnik and didn't horse collar him. All the coaches were amazed that Corey Flagg did not horse collar Cade Klubnik. Did you pick up on that, Gary? Mario mentioned it. Lance Guidry mentioned it. What a genius play it was for Corey Flagg to not have horse collared Cade Klubnik. So that's amazing that he didn't horse collar him. Amazing play.
I was just looking at something. They got a special promotion going for the Virginia game this weekend. It's really bizarre. They're having a raffle. If you buy tickets, you get entered into a raffle or something. I'm not going to pretend that I know all the details of this, but I'm seeing something like 500 tickets for $200, whatever the heck that means. But there clearly is a huge effort. Let's put it that way. Supposedly, if there's a jackpot, that some type of drawing that you win massive amount of money, but big effort going on to get people to go to the Virginia game. Let's put it that way. So if you don't have your tickets, check out the ticket office and find out what's up with this crazy promotion they just sent out. But anyway, so we talked a little bit about the Lance Guidry, the 3-3 set, and some of the comments yesterday. But one thing that we haven't really gone deep into yet is the performance that Ruben Bane put out the other night. I mean, it was unbelievable. You're talking about a kid that's a true freshman, 6-7 games into his college football career, playing defensive end, which nobody's really sure if that's really his right position. Moving forward in the future, if he's going to play in the National Football League, it probably won't be his position. And he's playing at a level as well as just about anybody in the country. Absolutely unbelievable. So we sent who into the lab again to do a deep analysis of Ruben Bane and just the disruption that he caused against Clemson. And Matt, you compared it to Warren Sapp, and as ridiculous as I think you are most of the time, I got to give you credit on that one. That was a pretty good analogy. He could end up very much being, by next year and the year after, I don't know that he'll be here 4 years. It'll depend on how he develops physically, probably, but he could develop into a Warren Sapp type of disruptive force on the defensive line, and probably already was on Saturday night against Clemson. Matt, tell us what did you find when you took that deep film dive into Ruben Bane's game?
Yeah, I found out he's pretty good. On the second to last clip we have of Bane in the story, if you watch the Warren Sapp highlights that I also included in there, which are NFL highlights, because look, it's grainy as it is. You go back to those Miami highlights, it's like a VHS tape, but it's almost one of the highlights of Warren Sapp is almost identical to what Ruben Bane does, where he just literally just picks up the offensive lineman and throws him out of the way and twists to the inside and gets the sack, almost all in one movement. But, I mentioned it yesterday, like Clemson did a very poor job understanding how good Ruben Bane is, how strong Ruben Bane is, how fast for his size Ruben Bane is. And I thought that, Lance Guidry was a little too honest about it, because what he said, and it's true, is that offensive tackles are not used to having players that are Ruben Bane's strength. Offensive tackles are used to having these sort of tall, lithe defensive ends with long arms and sort of a quick burst, and they try to either get around them or get in, or make a quick spin, get inside, whatever. They have certain moves that they'll do, obviously, and you could study those moves on film, and the offensive tackles do. Every defensive end that they go against, they're studying the moves. They learn their 4 or 5 favorite moves and then how to defend them. What you can't learn on film is how damn strong, low to the ground, leverage that a guy like Ruben Bane can get on you. 280-pound bull that's just charging at you and then all of a sudden disappears. That's basically what Ruben Bane is. He charges at you, he gets under your shoulder pads, throws you out of the way, and he's spinning as he's doing it into the quarterback. I mean, the fact that Clemson didn't understand they needed help on Ruben Bane, so many times he was just left one-on-one. Like Clemson was convinced for some reason, watching Miami's defensive line, this is what they decided, that they really never did a lot of max protect. They just would go 4 wide, 3 wide with an H-back, whatever. The running back would pick up blitzes once in a while, but they were not doing 2 tight ends. They were sending out that tight end on routes. As a matter of fact, he was probably their most dangerous threat downfield. And interestingly, Lance Guidry said they intentionally wanted Clemson to throw to the tight ends. He's like, that's what we're giving them, and Clemson did take it and did pretty well with it. And in all honesty, Jaden Davis should have had a couple of early deep pass plays where he clearly grabbed the guy way before the ball got there. He should have had penalties called, and Miami was fortunate they didn't, which is great. And Gary, you did ask Lance Guidry about Jaden Davis, and Lance
because
a little bit.
In a couple weeks they play Florida State, which has big receivers, and that they're going to have watched that game film, obviously, and they're going to see how Clemson tried to attack Jaden Davis, and you got to believe after seeing how successful it was, because there should have been 3 pass interference penalties called in the first quarter. I have no, it's like we're all upset about the safety call and the fumble against Georgia Tech and all these crazy calls that have gone against Miami with the ACC refs this year. There were a few that went in Miami's favor the other night that could have been pass interference down the field. But it's going to be an issue in the Florida State game with those big receivers. There's no doubt. So I figured I'd get ahead of the game here and talk to Lance Guidry a little bit about that yesterday, but he wasn't really going there. He knows what's up ahead, and he basically said he'll worry about that week. I think they may have to make some adjustments that week at the cornerback position. Maybe it's Richard, maybe it's the one or both of the Brown brothers, but they're going to have to get bigger at corner in that ball game on the outside, in my opinion. If they don't, they probably are asking for trouble. So we'll see how that goes. That's a few weeks down the road. But right now,
part of his answer was, though, and he does believe this, he said they have to execute. I don't think he's going to change anything until the other team proves that, okay, we can beat you multiple times. He clearly said it to you.
He'll make them hit a 50-yard pass before.
He'll make him hit 2 or 3 of them before he does anything. I'm telling you. Because guess what? He's been doing this, and the other teams haven't been connecting that much on those deep shots, one-on-one down the field. They just haven't. They've been going. It's almost like other teams have been scared a little bit of the pass rush. And guess what? If Messidor is back, maybe in a couple of weeks, I think he's questionable, doubtful probably for this game, but he might be back for that FSU game. And if he is back, I'm not sure that with him and Ruben Bane and Leonard Taylor, if they're all playing their hearts out, and by that I mean Leonard Taylor playing his heart out, I'm not sure that Jordan Travis is going to have all that much time to throw the ball 50 yards down the field. So, especially when they bring other blitzes, from different spots, and, it's not an easy defense for a quarterback to understand play to play exactly what's going to happen, because he'll throw the same look at you and drop different guys and blitz from different spots. And if the quarterback doesn't see it, he's in big trouble in that play.
Well,
if the quarterback does see it, then he can try to make a play. And if he does, he does.
Listen, he knows way more about defense than certainly you or I do.
Yeah,
but They have those big. They have those two big receivers
in there.
They have those two big receivers that are studs. Okay. And I agree with you. Miami's going to be much more representative in this game this year than they were a year ago. And they are going to be able to put pressure on Jordan Travis. And, but you don't want to lose that game getting beat with a weakness that you already know is a weakness, in my opinion. Especially after the disgusting stunt that was pulled the last few weeks by Florida State in recruiting, where Armando Blunt from Miami Central kind of fake committed to Miami. I'm totally convinced of this. So that a couple weeks later, he could go up to Tallahassee and decommit and commit to the Seminoles and make a big public spectacle about it that was leaking all through FSU media, where they were putting in recruiting prediction machine flips and all kinds of crazy. I mean, they put on quite a show. No argument. Score one for the Florida State recruiting office and staff. I mean, they put one over here. But
Mario's going to get them back the first.
All that means is that Mario Cristobal is just sitting there seething and
he's looking at every Florida State commitment and being like, "What do I? What levers do I need to get that player to?"
Yeah, I agree. He may or may not steal some Florida State commits, but I promise you one thing: he will make sure that whoever's doing the NIL, whatever,
dude, he'll donate $5 million of his own money just to get 3 FSU guys to flip. That's Mario. You watch. You watch. There will be an FSU commitment right now who winds up at Miami. I'm telling you.
Or a transfer or whatever. Yeah, whatever they can do to make Florida State spend money, they will do. I'm pretty sure. But they're also going to want to win that football game very, very badly in a few weeks so they could shove it up their noses. And listen, it didn't work out so great for Clemson when they ran up the score on Miami last year. Mario mentioned it, I think, 3 times on Monday, that he did not forget that with a comfortable lead, Clemson tacked on an extra touchdown late in the game last year.
Yeah, he remembers it.
Remembers.
By the way, do you stop recruiting Armando Blunt? If you're Mario, what do you do?
100% they're not going to recruit Armando Blunt. I'm going to tell you why. Armando Blunt, whether it's fair, unfair, whether he's really like this, really not, he might be a Boy Scout, okay? But what played out here was a character, at least a question mark. Okay, I'm going to be nice because he's a young kid, and it's really usually the fault of the parents in these situations. But his business was not handled very professionally, or very well, or very respectfully. Okay, and no, I don't believe Miami will continue to recruit Armando Blunt. I think Armando Blunt is the last player in the 2024 class that they want on their team at this point. Okay, and if Armando Blunt ever did decide he wanted to be a Miami Hurricane, he would have to go down there on his knees because, he played him. I mean, he played Miami. There's no sugarcoating this. And, committing and then decommitting 2 weeks later and committing to Florida State in this theatrical performance. Come on. I mean, it was ridiculous. And so, no, I do not think Miami will recruit Armando Blunt. I think they will look elsewhere for their defensive ends in the 2024 class. Anyway, so Ruben Bane, we've got that breakdown on the website for you as well. Make sure you check that out. All right, a few other stories we're going to talk about. But first, now it is time for me to talk a little bit about Bird Dogs and birddogs.com. Phenomenal apparel maker. They're fun. They're trendy. They make you laugh. Love their website. Go to birddogs.com. Check out their website. Matt Shodell's, he's a little embarrassed and the whole thing because they have fun over there. They do. Some bizarre names for their merchandise. I already told you about the Gary's Anatomy polo shirt and all that. We won't go back through that. But basically, one of their specialties is shorts. And the thing that makes their shorts so special, and Matt's already grimacing because he doesn't like liners, but they make them with liners. Like this is the liner that's inside a pair of Bird Dog shorts. And the idea, guys, is that if you don't want to wear underwear with them, you don't have to. And it's a comfortable fit, and if you go on their website, you'll see they call it Comfort Kingdom is what their big catchphrase is at Bird Dogs, and that's because they go the extra mile to make sure that you are extremely, extremely, extremely comfortable in their clothes. And one of the big things they're featuring right now, I'm going to pull it up on the screen real quick, are these khaki shorts. And they're stretch khaki shorts that they design to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you an absolutely sculpted look. Honestly, whether you're sculpted or not. Look, some guys are sculpted, some guys aren't. Everybody wants to look good when they put on their khaki shorts, and Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing that Lululemon tries to do, but they fit way better, and they fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs, they fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki. That's what you're looking at on your screen, but it stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any movement. And the greatest thing of all, because I know a lot of guys are sweaters, you're outdoors or hot, whatever, you sweat. They make their products with an anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I could go on and on about Bird Dogs. They sent me packages of their stuff a few weeks back. I wear it all the time. It really is as good as advertised and as comfortable as they say it is. And I encourage everybody out there to go give them a look. They have all different types of products. You can get pants, you can get shorts, polos, and if you order, if you go to Bird Dogs and order, and go to birddogs.com/CaneSport and use the code name CaneSport. And with your order, they will send you one of these beautiful flasks that I'm putting up on the screen, and it's really, really great. It's a hydro flask style water bottle, and you can get that free if you go to Bird Dogs and you order and you use the code CaneSport while you're there. So go check them out at birddogs.com. Try some of their products. You will not be sorry. Huge fans here of birddogs.com. All right, moving on to things that are on the website today. We do have some recruiting stuff for you, and a story on a commit that I could not be more excited about. I personally am so high on this kid. I think he is going to be an absolute superstar at Miami, and that is running back commit Kevin Riley. And he told us after the Clemson game that he may take a couple visits, but he said it doesn't mean that he's any less committed to the Hurricanes. He just might go check out some games. I mean, Auburn is pushing hard. So he may get back to Auburn again and a couple other schools. But he says he is locked in with Miami. Extremely important to the Miami signing day class. And if he makes it here, which hopefully he will for spring practice, you're going to be very happy he's on this team because this kid is a very talented running back, big time. So we have a story on the website today on Kevin Riley, so make sure you check that out. We also have a story on the website on a 2026 wide receiver by the name of Jordan Guidry, and you can check out what he is saying about Miami as well. So check those out today. I think for right now, that's going to be about it for Good Morning CaneSport. We will have all kinds of stuff on the website for you later today. We will have some player interviews around midday that for you guys to check out. Tonight, we have CaneSport Live at 8 o'clock. Encourage everybody to come be a part of that show, either as a listener or caller. Love when first-time callers call in. I would love to see a bunch of you guys that watch this show every morning. Give us a call on CaneSport Live. You'll see the link on the front page of the CaneSport.com website later today. You can listen online. You can call in and listen over your phone. Any way you choose, you can listen to CaneSport Live, and encourage everybody to call in and participate as well. And Wednesday night, we will have the Lamar Thomas show as well this week. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us as usual. If you are on YouTube right now and you like this and you enjoy this show, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please head on over to our website, become a subscriber. Your subscriptions mean the world to us. They allow us to do what we do every day to try to enhance your fan experience. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you once again, everybody, and we will see you next time.